Hi everyone, and welcome to the webinar for Access Information on Event Operations. My name is Nikita, and you should recognize me from some of your other webinars that you've seen, in particular select event venues and sites. This is the second unit of your Diploma of Events, and today we're going to be focusing on assessments 1 and 2. So the purpose of today is that I'm going to go through and break down each assessment with you. We're going to go through the questions just to make sure that you're understanding what's required of you and what you really need to put forward in the information. Assessment 2 is quite detailed as it's going to be the first event that you're focusing on with your research skills and reporting skills as well, and this will carry on into the third assessment. So for that purpose, I have split the webinars into two. So this one will focus on assessment 1 and 2, and the next one will focus on assessments 3 and 4, just to make it a little bit simpler for you guys. So the session's going to run with me going through each question with you. I'll have the unit breakdown that I've done up for this unit on the screen, so you'll be able to follow along with that one. How can you get the most out of this webinar? As previously mentioned in other webinars as well, you're more than welcome to download the assessment through the LMS and focus on that one while we're going through the webinar. You can take notes if you're wanting to do that. My little tip is to print it out, otherwise have your student workbook open and so that you're ready to take notes. I'm very old school and I like to write everything down, so feel free to do that one as well. With this webinar, you can pause at any point. You can fast forward to the most relevant section for you and rewatch some other sections, or going back to a question if you're not completely sure of what it is. So definitely make sure that you're utilizing the webinar in any way that suits you. After the webinar, you're going to go ahead and do the assessment. At the end of this, you'll also have my contact details as well, as per usual if you don't already have them. So if you're finishing the webinar, you're working on your assessment and you still have some questions, please feel free to get in contact with me, either via text or phone call. Email is fine as well. I'm also happy to look at any drafts of any assessments that you're going through. I do understand that the events units are very much research-based, and that's not everybody's strong suit. So I'm more than happy to have a look at drafts, give you some pointers, and point you in the right direction as well. So please don't hesitate to get in contact with me after this as well. So let's get started. We'll start with assessment 1. So with the whole overview of this, it's going to be more of an introduction to the actual events industry. The first unit's going to, the first assessment is really going to look at the events industry as a whole and not really in specifics yet. So the first assessment, I really want you to come and approach this one as if I knew nothing about the events industry. So you're going to give me some very general basic information just with the purpose of giving me a better understanding. Whereas the second assessment is going to be all about specific information relating to a specific event that you're going to research. So without further ado, assessment 1. So with the unit breakdown here, I've just given you some tips on what you're needing to discuss with this one. So this unit is going to describe your performance outcomes, your skills, and your knowledge required to source and interpret current information on the structure and operations of the event industry. Something that's really important with the event industry is being able to keep up to date with it. And you can do that on a whole bunch of resources. So you can look at things like blog posts. Instagram is really great as well for any trends that are popping up, as well as any kind of visual information. Newsletters are really great. So there's specific newsletters that you might be able to subscribe to in your area, and being able to keep up to date with any kind of research online as well. So this is really, this whole unit is really looking at those skills on being able to find information and keep up to date with it. So the very first question of the assessment 1 is asking you to research the current structure of the event industry and its sectors, including your functions, your key characteristics, business relationships between sectors, current issues and trends, roles and responsibilities of different job roles in the event industry, and career planning and opportunities. So what do we mean when we're talking about the actual current structure of the event industry? I basically want to know what it looks like, what's currently going on in the events industry. And this is what I mean about having really general information about it. So you can break this down into each little section. And if you want to, it is a report. So I would recommend having a couple of paragraphs and just answering the questions in that. So, you know, three, 4 paragraphs would be fine. And a couple of sentences on each one. Otherwise, you can just do it as a heading and then have your little paragraph underneath it answering the question. I'm not too fussed on the format. So the functions of the event industry, basically just tell me what it does. What is the purpose of the events industry? You can kind of think of things like a mission statement. So what is an event? What does it do? What's the purpose of having the actual industry? Is it an industry all of its own, or does it have relationships with other ones? Is it kind of intertwined with a different one? So this is just what you're telling me about this is what events is. So you definitely want to have a look at things like a function. You can use specific examples of events as well, like music festivals or food festivals or anything like that. And the point of those. So it's basically just to bring people together for a common purpose. So what's that purpose? Where does it come into? With the key characteristics, it's more about the key characteristics of the industry. So what does a successful event look like? What is an event? Like, what are the characteristics of an event? Is it sold out shows? Is it massive fields with, big stages and everything else? Is it small intimate events like weddings or parties or anything like that? What's the scale that you're looking at for these? So I've given you some examples in the unit breakdown as well. So you can also look at things like the key characteristics of the people who work in the industry. So an event manager, what would the requirements, I guess, be to be an events manager? What kind of skills should you have, like time management skills or being able to build strong relationships? So you really wanted to just look at key characteristics of a few things of the events industry. The business relationships between sectors. You just want to really have a look at how the events industry interacts with any other businesses or communities. So if you have like a hallmark event, so it happens at the same time every year in a specific environment or community or something like that, what's the relationship that they have between that community? Is it a sentimental value? Do they provide more tourism for a specific area? Is it local employment opportunities that they're offering and that's helping boost the economy for that particular area? What are the relationships here? You can also have a look at what the potential reasons for those relationships are. So is it to benefit both sides? Is it for exposure? So if you're thinking of like music festivals with local bands performing, maybe they're doing it for free purely because they're wanting that exposure, or they're wanting to be able to meet more people in their own industry as well. Volunteers would also be something you want to have a small mention of here as well, because it's more about networking and being able to build those relationships with people of that community. With the current issues and trends, you just want to tell me what's currently happening in the industry. Is there a specific trend happening within events that more people are becoming wedding planners or party planners, or is it more about music these days? So you really want to have a think of what's currently happening in the industry and really go and look at some blog posts and follow people online. You can even have a look at Facebook, Instagram, as I said before, and Pinterest are really good for event ideas. A lot of people are using these social media platforms, so it's definitely something that you're wanting to do a little bit more research in. With the trends and issues as well, you also want to think of things like the government legislations. What's happening in the government or the councils that's being able to change events. So this is something like noise pollution is an issue that might happen. So for instance, here in Brisbane, we've got the Suncorp Stadium with a 10 p.m. noise rule there. So after 10 p.m. there's not allowed to be any more loud noises or anything else, because it is situated in a community where people do have residential properties. So that's something you want to have a look at, as well as the economy and the types of events, as I said earlier. With the issues as well, you can also use examples of what's been happening. So if you do know of any legal issues that have been happening within the industry, bring them up for sure. So, if there's any big events that have been cancelled in the last couple of years, why was that? What happened? Was it a big issue that happened and that's why they got cancelled, or was it just a lack of numbers? So they're things that you want to really talk about here. With the roles and responsibilities of different job roles in the event industry, I'm just asking what sort of jobs are available. If I wanted to work in the events industry, what kind of jobs could I look at? What could I look for? What kind of skills do I need to have for it? And what's involved in these roles? So what are the responsibilities of certain roles that you have? So if you're an event manager, what are your responsibilities and what's the actual role about? To give me a few examples of this, you can also have a look at Seek in the events industry over there as well, and just have a look at what's available and just tell me a little bit about that. If you currently work in the events industry or you know somebody who does, this is a great opportunity to use that as an example. And just tell me more about what your job role is or what their job role is. I'd love to learn about this stuff as well, so it's always really great to see. With the career planning and opportunities, this is very similar to the previous point about your job roles. So you can just kind of run them off together as well. So you're wanting to look more about long-term career plans. What can you look for as a long-term goal? So if you start off as a volunteer somewhere and then start working and doing ticketing or something like that, what kind of career could you plan in the event industry? Is it a long-term opportunity that you've got? What sort of opportunities could come from this? What kind of branches are there within the event industry? So the event industry is massive, and it has everything else in there as well. So it will also include big companies that you can discuss as well. So is there a particular company that you want to work for? So this is all the stuff that we're wanting to really come off and discuss here in question 1. Really, if you want to view it as a snapshot of the events industry, that's great. But basically, this whole purpose of this section here is just to tell me more about the events industry as if I had no idea. So you can really approach it from a more, factual-based, persuasion of this as well. So if you just want to go through and just with every single question, just go through and just answer them in dot points first. It might be a little bit easier to format your report that way. Just break it down into each little section, put a couple of points down, and then start forming sentences around that. That would be my number 1 tip for this. So we're going to go down now to question 2, which is where we're going to be looking a little bit more about your actual resources that you could use. So if you can follow this straight on from your very first question, what did you use to answer those questions? What did you use to form that small report? If you've never done a bibliography before, I've given you a little example of how it should be set out as a very basic resource list. So you want to have a resource list with your source title at the beginning, and a source title can be the title of an article, a newsletter, a book, if you will, or even a Facebook page or a web page. Then you want to have a couple of sentences telling me about why it was helpful to you, and will it continue to be helpful in the future? Is it constantly being updated? Is it a live feed? What is it? And then just link me to that web source. So if it's a web link or if it's a particular like newsletter or something like that, you can just put in the newsletter and the date that it was released. Or if it's all online, just give me the link and that should be fine. But basically what we're wanting to do here is we've got 3 separate sections of the events information, and you're going to split your sources into these. So you've got your staging, product and services for different events, your legal requirements and compliance relevant to events, and your events technology. So you're going to be using your research skills that you've learned in your first question to go through and find some resources for these 3 sections. There's no real limit to this, but I would like at least 3 per section, so 9 in total. Once you've done that, you can just set it out as your source title, your reasons for being effective, and your web link, and then have that just as an A4 piece of paper and just write everything down there. But please make sure that it is, you've put them into the 3 separate topics and everything as well, and that's marked quite clearly. Once you've done that, Part B asks you to discuss your personal resource list with a work colleague to gain their feedback on your ideas and include any suggestions. For those of you who are currently working in the event industry or know somebody who is working in the event industry, this is a really great opportunity to start networking and getting some more information from those with the know. If you don't have a work colleague that you would like to discuss this with, feel free to discuss it with your mentor or with me, or even a friend or a family member. Maybe they've got some other ideas as well about where you can look. Being able to talk about this is all part of your communication techniques as well, and being able to get information from more than just the web. With the events industry, word of mouth is a very big deal. So, you can write all the good reviews online that you want, but if somebody comes over to a friend and says, hey, this is not a great event, that's going to spread more rapidly than somebody just posting one post on Facebook, for instance. So word of mouth is incredibly important. And so it's really important that you start learning to discuss different techniques of research and being able to come up with different sources as well, some things that you may not have thought of. So once you've spoken to that person, you want to add in the extra sources or ideas that they've had at the bottom of your previous resource list. So maybe just, headline it with, Part B. Tell me a little bit about what you guys discussed and then what resources or ideas came from that. And that will be the assessment, the end of assessment 1. So we'll just recap really quickly for this one here. So for question 1, we're going to be doing the very short report, which is going to introduce me to the events industry. So you're going to tell me more about the functions of the event. So that's the basic introduction to the events industry. Tell me the functions, what's its purpose? The key characteristics, what kind of characteristics does the event industry have? Successful shows, sold out tickets, strong relationships, time management skills for those people who are working within the event industry. What is the business relationships between the sectors? So how does the events industry interact with other businesses and communities? What's the purpose of that? And what would be the reason of having strong relationships? What are the current trends and issues? So what's currently happening in the events industry? What kind of legal issues are there? What trends are happening right now? What's really big in the events industry? Roles and responsibilities of different job roles in the event industry. So what sort of jobs are available and what's involved in these roles? And following on from that, we've got your career planning and your opportunities. So again, you're going to tell me more about what the long-term career opportunities are and what kind of career plan you could have in place for the events industry. Then you're going to move on to question 2, which is going to be your bibliography of the sources that you've used to research these 3 specific sectors, which you can also use from your previous question as well. So you've got your staging products and services for different events, legal requirements and compliance relevant to events, and your events technology. I've given you an example of how you need to set that out, and you just need to make sure that they're all in the specific sectors. And I would like there to be at least 9, if not more. After you've completed that, you're going to talk to your colleague or your friend or family member, gain some more ideas and of what they might have, and add them into your resource list. Perfect. Alrighty, so we're moving straight on to assessment 2. This is the one where it's a little bit more in depth of what you're actually going to be covering off on. This is probably the one with the biggest amount of work really for this unit. So you're going to choose a specific event that we've listed. So you've got the AFL Grand Final at the MCG, the Blues Fest, the Ekka, or Warm Adelaide. We've given you a little bit of background information on each of these events, like in your assessment and in the unit breakdown. So you just want to choose one that you think would be the most interesting to you and the one that you would not mind researching for a couple of hours. With the requirements of this, once you've researched your event, you're going to prepare a written report of 1,200 words. That's the minimum amount, so you can do 10% less or 10% more. I'm not really fussed on that too much, but I would like it to be a good effort of a report. So it needs to be set out as a proper report does. So you'll have an introduction, the body of your report, which will be made up of all of these questions, and then a conclusion as well to wrap up your report and any last ideas that you've got. With the introduction, you're just going to want to tell me a little bit of background information about your event. So I've got a little bit of understanding of where you're coming from, and have in your introduction as well what kind of things that we're going to be covering off on. In the introduction, it's really important to kind of draw in your reader. So you want to have your background information, the reason for the report, and a few examples of what you're going to be discussing. So you could, discuss something like the legal issues that are currently happening with this event, or why the event is such a success and why it's got longevity. With the body of the report, you're going to be answering each of these questions. Now, with each of these questions, it should be a few sentences at least on each of them. So we're looking for about 3-4 paragraphs again on this, as long as you're answering the question and putting in the viable information for it. So we're going to break down each of these ones. So with the category of the event, this is going to be in your learning content of which category this event will be in. So you've got your categories such as your hallmark events, your major events as well, or your minor events. So you're going to want to learn a little bit more about these and what they mean and how your event fits into that. So tell me about what type of event that your chosen event is. Is it a hallmark event? Does it happen all the time? Is it a minor event? Is it only quite small and local? So tell me more about it, and what's the primary function of that event? Why does that take place? So what's the outcome of your event? Is there a specific purpose of why they're bringing people together? Is there a specific function for the type of event that you've got? Is it a sentimental event? So tell me more about it. So this will run straight on from your introduction if you're talking more about the background information. So it's a good way to start the report. With the community significance and the impact, it's very similar to your category of the event and that background information that you're giving me. So you're going to be more discussing the regards of the event to the community. So what does the event mean for the community? So like we said earlier in assessment 1, is this event providing, is it a sentimental value? Is it providing local employment opportunities or business relationships? What's the deal with the event in the community? And does the event boost the economy? Does it bring tourism to the area? So these are all things that you want to consider for why it's significant to that specific community, or if it moves around a lot, what's the significance of it? With the active industry associates that are involved with the event, You just really want to talk about whether this event is part of an association and who oversees the operations of the event. Is it a small local event? Is it going to be one company essentially that runs this event? Or what does it really look like? Are there volunteers involved in this, or is there local employment involved in the event? Is it a possibility even for volunteers and local employment to exist within this event? So this is where the research will really come in of the history of who runs it and what that means for the community. With the stakeholders who are likely to be involved and their particular levels of interest, including attendees. The including attendees just means that the attendees are a stakeholder because they're purchasing tickets and they're coming there for a reason. So they have some kind of interest in that event. So they'll definitely be a stakeholder for you. So you just want to discuss as well who the stakeholders are for the event. You can think of people who are involved, so like your associations, local communities, any sponsors that they may have, and what do they contribute and what are their interests. So if it's a sponsor, what do they get out of having that relationship with the event? What do they actually sponsor the event with? Is it a monetary sponsorship? Is it material? Or is it something else? How is it that they're sponsoring the specific event that you're discussing? So you really want to look at anything that they contribute with things like exposure as well, and any products that they may be giving as well for that one. For the legal, ethical, or contractual issues that might need to be addressed, including consumer protection issues and equal employment opportunity, you really just want to have a look at what the legal, ethical, or contractual issues are that they may face. So is it a health and safety issue? Is it risk management, or is it food safety, for instance? A really great example is of the legal issues that were happening with, I believe it was Big Day Out. Where they were not paying the artists or anything like that. So that's something that you can also use as an example of what could possibly be happening. And then having a look at how that will affect your specific event. So maybe it's a reputational type of issue because music festivals are having a bad reputation at the moment. What's currently happening with that? Are there any ethical issues as well? So have there been any issues in the past or about anything with, equal treatment or anything like that? What's happening with your event? What's the history of any issues that they may be facing? So you can also look at things like sponsorship. Is sponsorship not as strong as it used to be? What kind of issues are there? Question F, so how the event earns revenue. So basically, how does the event make money? So is it all merchandise? Is it ticket processing? Is it any entrance fees that they may have? Are they getting all their money from sponsorship or catering or anything like that? So you just want to really tell me, how does the event make money? If you've attended the event, you probably have a really great idea as well because you've spent your money there. Otherwise, you can also have a look at more sources than just like the official webpage. Have a look at things like your Facebook as well. Facebook is really excellent for some of these events now. Everything is on social media and really quite big. So you really want to have a look at utilizing social media accounts for these specific events as well. So basically, yeah, just tell me how does the event earn money? What kind of staging products and services does this event have, and do these reflect current trends? Basically, this is asking you, what's the layout of the event? So does it have multiple stages? Is it one big stage? Do they have different like specific sections, such as in the Ekka, we've got Sideshow Alley. So everybody goes there for their bags and all that good stuff. So what does your event look like? Does it add to the atmosphere of the event, and is it following a certain trend? So if all music festivals are having multiple stages, for instance, maybe that's a trend that this specific event is following. And if it is, how so? With question H, does the event have longevity and why? Basically, it's going to be asking you here, how long has the event been around, and do you think it's going to be around for many more years? If you do, why? Or if you don't, why not? With this as well, you really want to have a look at past attendance, past attendance numbers if you can. Some of the information out there does have records of past attendance, like 30,000 people, etc. So that's something that you can use. Maybe attendance has been up since the last couple of years, so the event's been growing. And if it is, why do you think that is? Is it because of the specific event that it is, the location, the time of year, the event that is being able to give you really great bands or something like that? Or is it the trends that are coming together just from the society that we're currently living in? So is it the healthy eating bandwagon that everybody's jumping on? Is it one of those events? Is that why it's getting bigger? Just as an example. So this is the kind of thing that you really wanted to look at here. What's the future looking like for that event? Question I is, what other industries might benefit from this event and in what way? So again, we're going to be thinking about the relationship between this event and any communities or any other businesses and what that relationship looks like. So what would the other business benefit from? And again, we can talk about things like exposure and what other industries might be affected by this event. So events is normally very closely linked with hospitality and tourism. So with this question as well, you can discuss reasons why that may be. So for tourism especially and hospitality, so if there's a massive event, maybe people are traveling for that event. So the tourism industry will boom then because everybody wants to get tickets and everything for that as well. What cultural impacts are present in your chosen event? So how does the event impact the surrounding areas? Is there a cultural significance to the community? Is there any significance to the community in terms of the revenue that's being brought in? So are they benefiting from having money donated from this event to their causes? Is there local employment? Again, that might be a big boost or a cultural impact as well. You also want to have a look at things like public holidays. So here in Brisbane, when the Ekka comes in, we get a public holiday for that. So that's definitely very significant to the community around here. So that's something that you want to have a look at, as well as the entertainment value. So what's the significance of the event and what impacts does it have on its culture around it? For question K, we're looking at discussing any protocol issues that may be present. So what issues are present at the event? So again, you can relate it back to any legal, ethical, or contractual issues that you mentioned earlier. And think of the health and safety regulations, codes of practice, risk assessments, and privacy policies that may be in place for an event, especially if they're selling tickets for things online. How does the privacy policies come into that, especially with people, purchasing things online with their credit card numbers, having personal details and everything revealed? How would that really all come together? So that's going to be the majority of your, that's the body of your report. After you've done the body of the report, you want to have your conclusion where you're wrapping up all of your ideas. So as a conclusion, you can comment on the success of the event, the longevity of the event, and any, final thoughts on any issues that they may be facing. After that, you want to be able to list all the sources of information that you use to complete the assessment. So that's for your report. Again, we're going to be looking at the bibliography that you have completed in assessment 1. So it's going to be very similar to that. So what sources of information did you use to find all the information for this report as well? Again, format it with your source title and your reasons for it being helpful to you, and then just link me to that page. With this as well, you want to list the sources under the following headings. So we've got 3 headings again. So you've got the structure and the operation of the event practice, products and services information, and laws and ethical issues relevant to the event. So you're going to want to split your sources again into the 3 categories and really make that heading quite bright and bold and everything, so it's discernible. So we're going to go through that. In the unit breakdown, I've also had a little addition here of how to write a report. So it's just a little bit of a tip on how to do an introduction, a body of the report, or the conclusion. And then that is the assessment 2. So to recap this one again, it's going to be more of a very specific report on one event that you've chosen. So we've given you the background information on one. Choose one that you find very interesting to yourself so that you won't mind researching it for a couple of hours. Then you're required to answer all of the questions from A to J of what is going to be happening in the body of your report. Once you've discussed all of these in your introduction, your body of the report, and the conclusion, you're going to want to do your bibliography and make sure that they're structured around these 3 sections as well, and just have them as headings and put your sources underneath them. Again, in the unit breakdown, I've put through how to write a report as a little tip, and up above, again, if you get stuck on how to do a bibliography, I've also got a very basic little set out here for you. So with that one done, we've done the recap because we're totally efficient. So where to from here? I'd love you to get started on assessment 1, and just to give you also your own understanding of the events industry and kind of ease your way into this. So once you've done that, just move on to your assessment 2. Please find a event out of the 4 that you find the most interesting. It's always better to write a report on something that you're interested in rather than a very boring topic, as you're more likely to research and actually have a little bit of fun writing it and everything else. We're studying events, so I'm assuming that you have an interest in it. So it'd be really lovely to read about what you guys are really thinking about these events and your own experiences if you have them. If you've attended any of these events, put your own experiences into it. What have you personally seen? So I would love to read these from you. So from here, yeah, get your notes together, write your assessments, send drafts to me if you want to, or to your own mentors as well. I'm happy to talk you through the questions if you're needing any further clarification or examples of anything, or even just a pointer in the right direction. Any questions, concerns? Feel free to text me, call me, or email me. Carrier Pigeon works as well if you know how to use that system. But we're more than happy to help you as well. The mentor team is here for you 100%. So please don't hesitate to get in contact with us. My details are on the screen, so feel free to pause if you don't have these already. You can call the team on the landline 1300 if you can't reach me on the phone. Otherwise, text message works beautifully for me. My phone is always near me, so I'm more than likely to answer a text and a phone call from you. Otherwise, you can email me any drafts or questions that you have. I love looking over drafts, especially if it's a first report that you've written in a while. If it's not something you're totally confident on, or you're needing some more ideas or just feedback before you continue on, please feel free to send me a draft. I really don't mind. Or you can send any information as well to the student support link as well. So support available to you. Again, mentors, contact me. There's a lot of support. We also have a Facebook group for the Evolution Business College. So you can join the Facebook group as well. We've had a lot of good responses with other students talking to each other as well. So if you want more of like a forum type of based support, you can definitely do that. I would definitely encourage it. And so what's next? So we're doing your assessment. So hopefully get that big green tick and we'll get that marked off for you. And then we'll move on to assessment 3 and 4, which will be in the next webinar. So I'll see you then. Thanks so much, guys. Talk soon.